If you, this meeting is being recorded by the host or a participant.
That's me.
Okay, glad.
I'm letting someone in. I just
Okay,
pressed the button.
how do I get you off of here?
Let's see here. Oh, just say got it.
Okay,
All right, you're set. I just let someone into the meeting, so.
okay. I'd like you to read the disclaimer at the bottom there. All material provided by me, PhD, a suggestion that I might make might apply to you, but before you use it, I'd like you to talk to your physician or your medical researcher and find out if that's appropriate for you. The reason I have this disclaimer is several years ago, I was giving a lecture at a medical program in La Jolla, and was a new study at that year indicating that people with osteoarthritis should get involved in taking more calcium in their diet. And so I made that recommendation. At the end, a lady came up and said, "Boy, you sure blew it on that calcium recommendation." I said, "Really? Why?" And she said, "Because I am allergic to calcium." So that's the reason I have this little disclaimer, because what we say does not apply to everyone. Today, I'm going to share with you some information about a program that we evolved with at the University of California School of Medicine. And that program was testing executives who were living in the area around La Jolla, and we were trying to prevent heart disease in executives. And so we started a program of testing the individuals, and after evaluating the results of their evaluation, making specific programs to improve their health. And so today's lecture is about those tested, those people that were tested, what the results were, what they did in their lives, and the outcome in subsequent living. You can see now by the slide that this study was involved with the University of California School of Medicine, the Veterans Administration in La Jolla, and the YMCA in La Jolla, which helped us run the exercise phase of our program. The subject in this study turned out, over the 30 years that we tested, 11,000 individuals were tested, and we're able to determine the types of living that they were doing and the way they were living and what was working for them and what was not working. The members of this study included the San Diego and the Sun Valley Police Department and Fire Departments. And when we tested the Sun Valley group, there were only 3 policemen on the force and 2 fire people. And we tested almost all the executives and all the owners of businesses in Sun Valley. Other participants in our study were UCSD students, faculty, and staff. The 11,000 that we tested were individuals from California, Idaho, Minnesota, and Utah. And so what we're going to talk about today is the story of 2 women who were in the program, twin sisters. In fact, they were identical twin sisters. They were tested annually for 20 years, and we were able to follow their results over a period of 20 years by testing them every year and evaluating the results. Now, all participants in the program went through the almost the identical testing procedure. We tested their body composition, tested how much body fat they were carrying, their flexibility, grip strength, abdominal strength, back strength. They filled out a questionnaire which was what they were eating every day. We were able to use what was called the West Diet Analysis evaluation to determine the components of their nutritional intake. And they kept a diary of their exercise program, their habits of smoking, alcohol, even a human sexuality evaluation for 28 days. So we had a very large database of information on our 11,000 people. Also among the testing that we gave were a resting electrocardiogram, blood pressure, and a stress test, either a bicycle test or a treadmill test. And these were all, we started this program in 1970, and back in those days, this type of study was not very well done because most physicians were prescribing pills to cure medicine. And we had a hunch that exercise, diet, nutrition, and living style were very important in preventing heart disease and longevity. So we're going to talk about the two girls, the identical twins that were in the program. They were 5'3". They weighed 227 pounds. Their body fat was 33%. In other words, they were carrying 80 pounds of excess fat and water. And by the way, the incoming freshman girls at our university were about 25% body fat. So 33 was quite heavy. We took their blood pressure, averaged 160 over 105 millimeters of mercury. The resting EKGs were within normal limits. However, their exercise EKG showed ST segment depression, which is an indication that the arteries are narrowing down and that they were very, very low on their fitness profile. We also took blood analysis and did a complete blood analysis on all the students. What we found that the ladies were having bone problems, low calcium levels, low vitamin D, low niacin. They were taking antidepressant medicines and heart medicines. And due to excess alcohol that they were both consuming, they were quite obese, pre-diabetic, and had liver problems. So we're working with a very interesting group of ladies here. We took their blood glucose levels and we found that their blood glucose level was 219 milligram%. That would be an A1C of a really close around 9.2. The recommendation for mature people is an A1C lower than 7.0%. And so you can see that they were very high on the diabetic scale. And they were not only bad on diabetic, but their lipid scales for cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, LDLs were also very high. Their total cholesterol was 260 milligram%, which was extremely high. They were not mobile. They fatigued easily. They had muscle and joint pain. They had elevated mental depression and anxiety, and showed slight signs of dementia from low magnesium scores. So we had a couple of ladies in our program, and as a matter of fact, we had a lot of people at that time, back in the 70s, who were not taking very good care of themselves. So these girls were living a good life, but they were not in good physical or mental shape. And so we needed some very drastic, far-reaching changes for them. We made a recommendation of exercise, of weight control, exercise on a daily basis, weight training, swimming, aerobic dance, home exercises on a stationary bicycle or little home gym, ballroom dancing, and to go through our La Jolla YMCA program to get them onto a program of exercise. Our dietary recommendations were made on the food pyramid at the time. And if you look at this food pyramid that we had way back in 1960s, they recommend servings of vegetables and fruit between 6 and 9 per day. And the latest data on fruit and vegetable intake is 10 nowadays. So they weren't too bad. The food pyramid that we were using was not too far off. Our recommendations for fun were to relax, go on vacations, go on cruises, get some skincare. We were doing at the time also some skin cancer prevention programs, and we found that people who got professional exfoliation with facials got rid of those skin cells that were precancerous. So this was a recommendation that we also made, and we put it under a fun recommendation because it wasn't very difficult to get a facial. Now, what did Rebecca, and these are fictitious names, if these identical twins actually were millionaires from La Jolla, and so we've changed the names to protect the rich here. So we had Rebecca and Joyce, and what they actually did with our exercise recommendations. Well, Joyce sat around, she read a lot, and she turned into a couch potato. Joyce, on the other hand, she got into the YMCA program. She did aerobic exercise. She did hiking. She swam. She did weight training, and she walked on the beach. So we have identical twins with identical preliminary scores who are now sort of forming their future life with an exercise program, and one that's very, very vigorous, and one that is not doing very much. Now, what did Rebecca and Joyce do with our dietary programs? Well, you can see here that Rebecca continued with her high-fat diet, loved cheeses. Prime rib was her favorite meat. She had at least 1 to 2 desserts with every meal. She was eating a very high-fat diet. Joyce, on the other hand, was taking the skin off her chicken before she cooked it. Well, they actually had a maid who cooked. She ate a lot of fish, very lean beef, lots of vegetables, fruits, fresh fruits every day, green and colorful vegetables every day. So we have one, Rebecca, who is not eating too well, Joyce, who is following the program. What did they do for recreation? They went on cruises, got their facials, massages, did whatever people love to do with their fun time. What did they do on the cruise vacation? Well, Joyce, Rebecca here, she read a lot. She, as you can see, she ate a lot. She slept a lot, and she simply enjoyed her time in a deck chair. What did Joyce do here? You can see that she read a lot, but she swam every day. She got into aerobic dance classes. On one cruise, she learned how to hula. She did her weight training every day. And one of the reasons that she was into weight training is at the time there was a current study that showed that women who did weight training had 40% less chance of breast cancer. So that was a very important finding that Joyce stayed with, and she did her weight training. Joyce also did ballroom dancing. On one of the cruises, she found a boyfriend and sparked up a romance. Rebecca, on the other hand, continued to read a lot and eat a lot. So these girls chose lifestyles that were quite different. And this is how Rebecca and Joyce lived from age 62 to 82. Now, let me tell you a little bit about their evaluations that we looked at from a medical point of view. The first time they did a treadmill test, they lasted for 2.5 minutes. That was when they were 62 years of age. At 82, Rebecca only lasted 45 seconds. Joyce, on the other hand, lasted nearly 13 minutes. That was stage 4 on the modified Bruce protocol. So her fitness level was extremely high. In fact, she ranked in the 92nd percentile. We did grip strength. The initial grip strength was 16 pounds for the girls. 20 years later, Rebecca was down to 11 pounds of force. Joyce was up to 29 pounds. She, again, was in the 90th percentile for women her age. The body weight on the first test was 227 pounds. Rebecca gained up to nearly 260 pounds when she was 82. Joyce dropped down to 122 pounds. The entering college freshman women at our university averaged 125 pounds. So Joyce is right down there among those college gals. The body composition on their first test was 33%. 20 years later, Rebecca was up to 36% body fat. Joyce was down to 24% less fat than our entering college freshman girls. The lipid profile was very high with cholesterol, total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, the ratio was poor. And as you can see, there were very high risk of developing heart disease. Bone density loss. We did a special test on a group that we measured their bone density, and we found that Rebecca was below normal and Joyce was 40% less bone loss over those 20 years because of her lifestyle. Bone fracture risk was very high for Rebecca, very low for Joyce. Mobility was very limited with arthritic joint pain, and for Joyce, very, very high mobility. She was dancing and aerobic exercising almost every day, and this was what's keeping her up. So here we have the gals, 20 years later. Rebecca is almost disabled because of her lifestyle. Joyce has a little bit of arthritis, have to admit that, but it was manageable, and she had very, very low disability from arthritic conditions. The mood rating that we took on the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory test, showed that Rebecca had very high anxiety and Joyce very low anxiety. Range of motion and the flexibility, very low with Rebecca and very high with Joyce. So these gals, although they are identical in many ways, are completely different people at age 82. The days of exercise that Rebecca went through per year were between 0 and 12 days of real exercise. Joyce, on the other hand, exercised an average of 286 days per year. And so you can see that you can either get into a program and really hit it hard, or like Rebecca, you just let it go. One of the most interesting studies that we found looking at these girls, that the last year, when they were 82 years of age, the medical bills for Rebecca was $68,000 for that year for all of her medical treatment. On the other hand, Joyce was only $6,200 a year. So when we're talking about compulsory medicine for people, I think this is a very compelling number here. 10% of the actual cost of someone that doesn't take care of themselves. Now, we wanted to look at the aging process, and what we're going to talk about today's lecture is we took the lungs, the heart, the kidneys, the liver, and brain activity for both the ladies. We found that the physiological loss for Rebecca was about 1% per year. So over those 20 years, she lost 20% of her organ functions, while Joyce, on the other hand, who did her exercise and ate right, only lost 0.25%. So she did her aging was way below the average. And so we have a lifestyle that affects that. I have a link here if you would like to find your personal physiological aging. If you'll go on and link into your computer after the lecture is finished and just type in quiz and then discover your real age. So that's quiz, discover your real age. You'll come up with a link that you can enter your data and find out your physiological information. It's kind of a fun little test, and I'd like you to try that if you're interested. Now, so why did Joyce deteriorate slower than Rebecca? Why did she age slower than Rebecca? Well, we looked at the lifestyle of these two gals, and we did a statistical analysis of their lifestyle and all of the things that they did, all of the things that they didn't do, and we found a statistical correlation related to aging. And those, I'm going to give you those. What we found was basically that 60 minutes of brisk exercise 5 to 6 days a week lowered their BMI, their ratio of fat to their height. And we found that that for Rebecca and Joyce, there was quite a big, huge difference. But the correlation here is 60 minutes of exercise. So don't think that 10 minutes of exercise a couple days a week is going to do it. You really need to get out almost every day. If you avoid tobacco, marijuana smoke, and all illegal drugs was a main correlate in aging process. Maintain a steady romantic human sexuality life was a very high correlate for life expectancy, and it's something we'll have a lecture on in the future. You have to ration your time in the sun. We found that there was quite a relationship between people who overexposed to sun and skin cancer. And eat specific foods every day and limit processed foods and soft drinks. Those are the highest correlates for increasing your longevity in life. Now, the next lecture that we're going to give is a lecture on updating nutrition, and we're going to bring in the latest information. So what we found in our study was that people who ate berries, of all things, and this was a very big surprise to us, that and berries contain flavonoids, which are antioxidant foods, and they will help keep your cells younger, and I'll show you in a moment why. But the berries today, we have found that are very important as a phytonutrient. We didn't even know what a phytonutrient was back in the time we were doing our testing. Other foods that are very important are colorful vegetables. Just got them here. I'm not going to talk too much about food today because we have an up and coming lecture about updating on nutritional aspects. So these are the vegetables, and you can see how colorful they are. And the number of vegetables that they're recommending nowadays is between 9 and 10 combination of fruits and vegetables. Now, what we want you to do is we want you to eat your antioxidants. Now, what is an antioxidant? Well, antioxidants are compounds found in food. When you digest them, they circulate through your body in your blood. They go to specific cells in your body, and they protect the cells against DNA injury and membrane injury. If you eat, say, white sugar products, white flour products, alcohol, are exposed to tobacco smoke and other pollutants, you get a lot of oxygen-free radicals into your body. Well, what happens is that these antioxidants protect you against oxygen-free damage that occurs in your cells. So let me explain a little bit about oxygen-free radicals, how they're formed. Your body is composed around 60% water. Your body uses water to function, and your cells produce water as they metabolize. So in this case, we have water on the left, H2O, 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. But what happens is that when you eat oxygen-free radical type foods, those free radicals come into your cells and they have an extra oxygen electron. So they have an odd number of oxygen electrons. And what happens is that that odd number jumps over into some of the water in your cells, and it produces H2O2, which is hydrogen peroxide. Well, you know what hydrogen peroxide does to your hair. So this is what it's doing to your body. It's attacking the cell membranes, and it is also attacking the nucleus of your body, which carries your DNA. And so these oxygen-free radicals are very, very injurious. An antioxidant food is vitamin E. And they used to recommend high intakes of vitamin E, but now they're holding that back and finding some injury with too much vitamin E. So I would consult with your physician about your vitamin E content, but you can find it in fresh fruits and vegetables. All green leafy vegetables and tomatoes are very good. Atlantic salmon is a good form of that. Another calcium antioxidant is very important. And here's the one that we made the recommendation on. So your calcium intake should be increased a little bit or held steady. And you can get that in certain foods, oranges, salmon, dairy products, green leafy vegetables, kale. The dinosaur lettuce of our time is one of the finest green vegetables if you can take the taste. Vitamin D, which is really in the headlines nowadays, you need vitamin D in order to absorb your calcium. So increase the vitamin D, and here are a couple of sources: tuna, salmon, meat, eggs, and so forth will give you a good source of vitamin D, and maybe a supplement, you want to consider that as well. One of the reasons that we're so concerned about vitamin D is that every cell in your body has a receptor site for vitamin D. And if you are deficient in vitamin D, that cell is at risk against attack from your oxygen-free radicals. So what we want to do is probably consider increasing your vitamin D intake. And of course, people who live in cold weather cannot get out and get their skin exposed to the sun for vitamin D production. So with vitamin D as a concern nowadays with this COVID problem, the RDA is now up to over 3,000 international units. And some studies are showing that even 10,000 international units of vitamin D are very important, plus zinc to fight these COVID concerns. Exercise 5 to 6 days a week, we found that that is a high correlate for prevention of heart disease and other aging processes. And you need to bring fresh oxygen and nutrients to every cell in your body. And when you exercise, you want to protect yourself in that way. You can do a home exercise also if you can't get to the Y by just going to your computer and typing in home exercise, and There are dozens of them for all ages and all conditions. Now, I want to finish up here in the last few minutes with talking about how we really slow down the aging process with your cells. Yes, we're not kidding. You can really slow the aging process of your body by eating properly and exercising and doing other correlates that keep your cells from aging too fast. Now, your body has about between 10 and 37 trillion cells, and there are 200 different types of cells. The cells have a lifespan of their own, but each cell must be continually fed. And this is one of the products of how we keep our cells from aging too fast. Your skin cells, the average person has 1.6 trillion cells. They only live about 28 days. You lose 1 million cells per day. They fall off of your body. In a year, you lose about 8 pounds of skin cells. So where do they go? Well, they mostly fall to the floor. And in your house, I know you have dust mites that eat them. So this is one way you can you can starve out your dust mites if you exercise well and keep those skin cells from dying quite so quickly. There are 25 trillion red blood cells in your body, and in a male, about 20% less in females. They live 120 days. Every second that you live, you create 2 to 3 million red blood cells. So it's important that you have constant nutrition to keep these cells young and healthy. There are 38 trillion bacteria in or on your body. So when you do a handshake, you transfer about 120 million microorganisms to the other person, but you pick up 120 million microorganisms every time you handshake. A hand bump is only 6 million. An elbow bump, well, I don't know. I looked in all the medical review and I couldn't find how many microorganisms are transferred when you do an elbow bump, but at least consider a hand bump instead of a handshake to knock down the number of microorganisms that you're transferring each time you do a handshake. Now, this is how you keep your cells young. If you have adequate blood supply with exercise, you have good nutrition, you have good vitamins, phytonutrients, good antioxidants, you exercise every day, you have a rich, loving relationship, your cells, when they divide into 2 healthy daughter cells. But if you have too much sunshine every day, insufficient nutrients, you get antigens in your body, inflammation occurs, and when inflammation occurs, this original cell now breaks into 2 older deteriorated cells as a function of these oxygen-free radicals attacking the membrane and attacking the DNA that's in your nucleus, the nucleus of all your cells. So now you start to get aging as a process from a young cell. They start getting a little older. And the older they are, they will now process into older cells. And this is how we age our cells as a result of having oxygen-free radicals attacking the membrane and the nucleus of our cells. And this is what happened to Rebecca her entire life. She never ate right. She didn't exercise. She drank too much. And these are the consequences of a lifestyle. Now, what happens is if you change your diet, you start exercising, and you live a slightly different life, these older cells now are receiving adequate antioxidants, and they restore the membrane and the nucleus, and you start getting younger cells. And these younger cells now are protected. Here's a little graphic I made up. This is the membrane of the cell around the cell. This is the nucleus. When you have oxygen-free radicals in your diet, for example, sugar, white bread, alcohol, too much fat in your diet, that brings in oxygen-free radicals. These free radicals attack the membrane and they also attack the nucleus. But if you eat your antioxidants and you exercise, these antioxidants come into the cell, they attack the oxygen-free radicals and kill them and turn them into safe free radicals. But unfortunately, when they attack and kill off an oxygen-free radical, it destroys them. So you lose them and they turn into a safe free radical themselves. So you have to continually restore your antioxidants by eating properly. So this is how your cell regenerates itself, and this is how the oxygen-free radicals lose their life. So here we have a regenerated cell begins to divide into a younger cell. The younger cell then divides into another younger cell, and pretty soon your cells are younger because they've been treated properly. This is how Joyce lived from age 62 to 82. She was continually regenerating those cells. So finally, it's never too late to slow the aging and to euthanize your cells, all of them. And it takes a lifestyle change and a lifestyle that will make you happier and more productive. If you have any questions, we can take those in a moment. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer for you, please use my email address. It's UCSDProf, that's like University California San Diego professor. So UCSDProf@gmail.com. And if you want to know something about either nutrition or exercise or injury or aging or whatever, just write an email to me. Be specific about what you want, and I'll be glad to answer those questions. If we have questions today, I think we can get those, and that would be the end of my presentation.
All right, I'm gonna stop.